Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and all else, to another episode of 3 Random Creepypastas, the show where I go on the Creepypasta wiki, go down to site navigation, and find a random story. Pretty self-explanatory. You know what the show is all about, so let's begin by finding 3 random creepypastas. Let's go! Alright, our very first story is known as The Room on the Left, and it seems to have been written, or at the very least added to the Creepypasta wiki, by a user known as Crewful. And it was added in 2012, so this is quite the old story. Let's take a look. And just in hindsight, a quick forewarning, this story very briefly deals with some heavy topics, that being suicide. It is very brief and doesn't really go that in depth, but if that is a subject that is difficult for you to process at the moment, or if you just do not want to hear about it, then feel free to skip the story or just click off this video. I would completely understand. Just keep that in mind. I am writing this to warn you. Never go to the room on the left. I live in a small town in New Jersey. The types of ones you see in movies where everyone knows each other. The town was founded by Native Americans, which gives it an eerie sense. A lot of weird things happen here, and of course, they mostly happen to me. My house is a fairly large one. I remember playing hide and go seek in it as a child. The thing is, I was and still am terrified of it. The house has a life of its own. It roars in agony every time we move something. My father's fish tank, which was a 56-gallon one, was tossed into thin air and flipped over. We believe a spirit haunts our house, particularly 3 of them. None of the 3 really care about our safety. They toss things at us, pinch us, hell, they even scratch us. But there is one. I think one of them has possessed one of our dolls in our infamous doll room. My mother is an ecstatic collector. Yeah, tell me about it. One doll, the one I believe the spirit haunts, is a porcelain doll. It has a sort of blank, expressionless face on it. It is just staring with bright blue ambitious eyes, and curly brown locks. It wears a shade of blue dress with a sort of Victorian-style hat. It has a lifeless look on it. It just stares there, staring at nothing. But it has a reason to stare. Because I know something is there. Something that makes it stare into the blank air in which I breathe in every day. Something is in the room on the left. The doll. The doll has stricken me with fear. A type of fear that tingles your spine and shrivels your heart into nothing. I feel it sucking my life away. I watch it every day waiting for it to move. And when it does... well, when it does... God bless my godforsaken soul. After a long day, I decided to go to bed early one night, but the thing that really concerns me is that my room, of course, is the room which shares its walls with the doll room. After thinking about tomorrow, I finally fell into a deep sleep. I had a dream that night. I was running away from my house. But whichever turn I took, I would end up back at my house, and every time, I would look into my room. To see that doll staring out my window. I would just look at it and try to sprint away. But it wouldn't work. Losing my mind, I'm losing my mind, I said to myself. I woke up from the nightmare and had seen the doll peek into my room. I held in my shriek, for I know the doll would be back to its spot on the shelf by the time my father had gotten his bat. It's useless, kid. You tell your parents, you end up in a psychiatric home. You keep your mouth shut, you end up dead or crying every night from the doll. Into the darkness I go. I decided to get up and search for the godforsaken doll the next day. I found it in its normal spot. I tore the head off the thing and made sure I had dealt with it properly. Vaccine, I had thought. This was my cure to the problem. I killed it. The night which I had been happy for had came. I fell asleep no problem, but was rudely awoken by a menacing bump around 3 in the morning. Oh God, please not the doll, I had thought. I opened my door and built enough courage to walk 5 feet into the hallway and turn left. The doll was there, staring at me. Every night I would wake from a stir, a commotion, a bump, and see the doll. I can't stand it. I'm going to commit suicide. Okay? A quick hanging will do. I tie the noose, which will bring my rigorous fight to an end. I hung it on my fan and stood up in front of my desk chair. I let go of my last breath and kicked a chair. I woke up in a hospital room, 3 IVs in each arm. My parents said they had awoken to me on the floor. The news cut with a sharp knife on the floor. They didn't cut it, but who did? Please read every starting letter in each paragraph, except the one above me. I'm not alive. Let's read every starting letter. I'm not alive. Yeah, it just says I'm not alive. Alright, so does that final twist of I'm not alive, is that implying that the author is not alive and it was in fact a doll who wrote the story? Is that the thing, or what? I don't really know. Yeah, I would say that was pretty good. I will say the writing in the beginning was actually quite strong. I found myself really enjoying the way the author was describing their hometown and, giving a feel for where they live, how they live in this house that is very, has a lot of strange things happening to it and everything like that. Don't know what the point was of describing that they had like 3 spirits and that, they believe that their house is haunted and everything like that. Felt a little bit like superfluous detail once the story wrapped up. Ultimately, though, I would say that that the ending sort of let the story down, because I felt the build-up was very strong with them describing their hometown, their house, their family, and, everything like that. That stuff I really enjoyed. Then once things started ramping up, and then the author ended up in the hospital, and then it turns out that they're not alive, or that the doll is writing the story or something like that. I'm not really sure at the moment, but I feel that was a pretty abrupt ending, all things considered, which is a shame. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more than that, but what can you do? All in all, that story was it was alright. It was alright, I would say. Like I said, I wanted more, and I felt that the beginning was good. It was pretty good and interesting and intriguing, but the ending sort of let it down. So ultimately, I will have to give this story slightly above average at a 6 out of 10. That's basically all I have to say about this story, so let's move on to our second story. Alright, our second story is known as Always Count the Legs of a Spider, which, if you have arachnophobia or something like that, maybe this story is not for you. Let's take a look. Let me preface this by saying that I have a severe case of arachnophobia. Seriously, even those tiny ones scare the shit out of me. If I spot a spider in a room, any room, you can bet your ass that I'll be the first to leave it. So it's God's greatest joke that this should be happening to me. The guy who regularly dissolves into tears over a fucking daddy longlegs in the sink. I can definitely relate to this main character. Just a few days back, I ran into a friend of mine on my way to the corner shop, so naturally I was forced to stop and make small talk. When I glanced down at my feet whilst racking my brain for an excuse to leave, I saw these long hairy legs sticking out from under my Reebok, twitching meekly. Now, when I say those legs were long, I don't mean, hey, that spider's got pretty long legs, long. I mean, holy fucking shit, look how long that spider's legs are, long. I'm not exaggerating when I say that its leg span could easily have covered a small car's wheel from end to end. Staring down in utter revulsion, not daring to remove my foot from what I imagined to have been a very gruesome scene, some part of me noted that this monster had 10 legs in place of 8. Without looking back, I turned tail and sprinted all the way back down the street to my house. At the front door, I kicked the offending shoe off into the street before slamming it shut. I backed up to the sofa, shuddering as phantom spiders crawled around under my shirt. The rest of that evening was spent on my laptop, trying to find the species that the spider belonged to, whilst simultaneously avoiding the images tab. I'd seen enough spiders already, thanks. As expected, my efforts uncovered nothing, and so I retired to bed for the night feeling very confused and very uncomfortable. Sometime during the night, I awoke to the faint sound of scuttling in the darkness. Blinking sleep from my eyes, I rolled over and flicked on the bedside lamp. As warm light washed over the cramped bedroom, my blissful ignorance shattered into oblivion. On the bedside table, so close to the lamp I had almost touched it, sat a huge 10-legged spider. Ooh. I was unable to move, unable to think, unable to breathe as I looked at its face. Oh, I don't like where the story is going at all. I've been in situations like these where you wake up and there is a spider or insect that you find unpleasant, very close to you. It is not a very pleasant experience, let me tell you that much. Set into the front of its dark, fat body were a pair of brown eyes. Human eyes. Oh no, I don't like where the story is going. They were heavily bloodshot and didn't appear to have eyelids, just big, round, and boring deep into mine. It was an abomination, the stuff of nightmares even for someone without my crippling fear of spiders. Whenever my head moved, its eyes would shivel unblinkingly to track mine. Something about knowing that it was watching freaked me the hell out. And then I blinked. In the split second that my eyes were shut, there was a sound of mad scrambling followed by a sickeningly heavy weight falling against my chest. It was on top of me, its bulging eyes locked on to mine, mere inches from my face. My heart hammered furiously for the remainder of that night and well into the morning. The spider stayed as motionless as I did. Apart from the constant oh shit, oh shit, oh shit running through my mind, I only had two unique thoughts the entire time. There was the point that I very nearly broke and actually considered knocking the beast away and making a run for it. But knowing full well it would have probably just killed me with those vicious fangs, I couldn't go through with it. I also came to the realization that this had to be the same creature I'd stepped on earlier that day. In fact, I was certain of it. It took me an embarrassingly long time to snap to it, but then, my mind wasn't exactly at peak performance just then. I'd killed it, and this was its insane idea of revenge. Lord knows how it returned to life. Hours after the torment had begun, when the sun had fully risen, the thing finally zipped away in an instant, disappearing through the open door. It was a while before I felt able to move again, and even longer until the torrent of tears finally stopped. Later that same morning, I received some troubling news. Apparently my neighbor, Todd, had been taken to the hospital during the early hours of the morning. His wife had awoken to the sounds of his sobbing. When she had turned on the lights, she had been horror-struck to find that her husband's eyes were missing, with dark empty pits in their place. I can only imagine what it must feel like to open your eyes but see nothing. That poor guy. I have an appointment with a therapist tonight. I'll be paying through the nose for him to convince me that this shit didn't happen. Money well spent if you ask me. So here's my advice to you. If anyone ever needs you to kill a spider, then, by all means, rid the world of as many as you can. You'd be doing many of us a huge favor, trust me. But for your own sake, you might want to count its legs before you do. And that story is credited to Ruzia. Damn, the trouble with going off the cuff with these stories and being unprepared is that when it comes time to give your thoughts, you're still wrapping your head around the story. First impressions, really positive, obviously. As you could tell, I was very, very disturbed and disgusted by that story and by the way the author was describing this creature that was apparently a spider but could also be something else. I'm going to assume at the moment that the spider eventually grew bored of its victim and therefore went away and then went over to the neighbor Todd and attacked Todd instead. That's at least my theory, coming out of it immediately. But of course I could be wrong. And the story, talking about how you should count the legs of a spider, I'm sure there is more to that than just be careful. I'm sure there's more to that. But at this moment, having just read the story, I'm gonna need some time to think about it. But all in all, very, very positive impression coming out of it, immediately. I found it to be disturbing. I found myself in the shoes of the main character and imagining myself in that situation, waking up to see a massive spider with 10 legs and, realistic eyes. Definitely not a fun thing to think about in the slightest. If I had to give this story a rating, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it and found it to be very effective in the way it disturbed the reader. Like I said, gonna need some more time with it to think about it. If you have any thoughts on it, or if you have a theory about what the final message about, counting the legs could mean or anything like that, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear it. There was someone in a previous episode who talked about the Down in the Beast story and gave their interpretation, which was really interesting to see and really added dimensions to the story. So if you have thoughts on any of these stories or theories, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear them. But with that said, always count the legs of a spider. Really good first impression. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, that's basically it. Really good story, and I really enjoyed it. With that said, let's find our third and final story. Alright, our third and final story is known as The Real Dream, and it was apparently written by an author, or at the very least added to the Creepypasta wiki, by a user known as Time Lord Will. And as you can see, this story was added to the wiki on January 31st of 2012. 8 years ago. This is a real classic, and it's still on the wiki, which is impressive. So let's check it out. A dream is just a dream, right? I mean, why would it be anything else? For the last few months, I have had the same dream at least 5 times. Each time I see the same thing, hear the same thing, and the same thing happens each time. I once read, whereat I can't remember, fun, right? That if you have a dream once, it is merely a dream, nothing else. If you have it twice, it is an idea that should be used. If you have it 3 times, it is a warning. Lastly, if you have it 4 times, you should find it and or do it. What does it mean if you have it 5 times? I am not sure, nor do I wish to find out. What I am sure of is that I will go with the 4th one. Yes, many people have had the same dream over and over again, but what is weird is that it is the only dream that I can remember having in the past 3 years. Maybe I am overthinking it, but it is my dream, so I can think however I wish about it. Like I said, it is the same every time I have it. The area is in deep water. Very deep. How deep? I don't know, but I know that I would drown if I were to try to swim in it. Around this water of endless depth is man-made land. What kind of man-made land? Well, it is made of metal. Really old metal. The rust can be seen from about a mile away. The land is not flat, but tossed in a way. What I mean is that beams, platforms, and other metal pieces are just kind of there. The metal land travels 2 miles out in the water and loops back to the real land. Yes, it forms what I think is a huge horseshoe. In the middle of it is a 60 by 60 foot platform made of concrete, with a 15 by 15 foot gate. The gate opens down into a pit. I am calling it a pit because it is all I know of it. Unlike the rest of the metal out there, the gate is brand new and shining. Standing next to the gate is an old man. I can't tell you the details of the old man because whenever I think of him, he blurs and then I forget the man altogether, as if he was never there at all. Yes, I know, I need to stop overthinking it, but I know he is there. Now let's get to where I am in this dream. As the times before, I am on a boat, a small one big enough to hold me, and it is powered by an unnamed motor. I can judge how fast it is, but I don't think it matters. Before I start the boat, I have the feeling that I need to get to the platform. I feel a real need, like the need to breathe. Then I take off. After about 5 minutes, I reach the halfway point to the platform. It is marked by a tower of some sort on either side of the metal land. The moment my boat passes the mark, I get another feeling. A feeling of pure fear. This is a fear I have never felt until I first had this dream, and it has only gotten worse each time I have had this dream, if I even wish to call it that now. The platform is only 300 feet away from my boat, and then I forget it. I just completely forget where I am and where I am going, so I ask out loud, "What?" Then I hear a voice that I cannot place. "Turn away for now." Then I do. I just do. Why, I don't know. When I land the boat back onto real land, I remember why I was out in the water. I look at the platform, blink, and I wake up every time. Now I want to find this place. I need to find this place. The old man, the deep water, the platform, and everything else. I feel that I have to. I have begun to look up maps of the East Coast, mainly around factories and shipping yards. I have also tried to look up the scene in legends and tales of old. These are my words for it. I have yet to find anything. I think it is a place, or that is to say, I know it's real. Can anyone help me out? Thank you for taking the time to pay attention to a dream I know is real. From The Lost Doctor. Alright, that was The Real Dream. Definitely a very vague story, I will have to say. First things first, I enjoyed the way the author was describing this dream and the environment that they were in. I found that to be intriguing and interesting, and I wanted to know more about this location that they were in these dreams. Or were they dreams? And I wanted to know more about this man that they met in the dream and why they felt compelled to, you know, completely follow the orders of this man and what this environment means and everything like that. I found the way the author was describing, you know, if you have a dream this many times, this is what it might mean. I don't know if those are like real ideas or theories about dreams, or if the author just came up with them for the story. But I did find that interesting, to say the least. The writing, I would say, was fairly solid, but nothing that really grabbed me, you know, extremely well, I would say. Not to say that it was bad, but I wasn't really blown away, so to speak. And unfortunately, I found the ending to be rather unsatisfying and unfulfilling. Like I said, it left things pretty vague, and, you know, you don't have a lot to go off of, I would say, in order to speculate further, except, you know, ask the questions that the author is giving to you at the end of the story, you know, about what everything could mean. I would have liked to have learned more or have seen more. As it stands, the story is rather confusing and almost meandering in a way, and there are little answers, and you know, sometimes that can be a good thing, sometimes that can be a bad thing. In this regard, I would say it left me rather unsatisfied, I will have to say. The story wasn't bad, absolutely not, but I can't say I was extremely impressed either. So, all in all, I would say that story was... if I'm feeling generous, I would give that story a 6. Yeah, that's basically my opinion, and if you came away from it with a different opinion, then, you know, I'm very happy about that. And if the author, by any chance, is watching this video, you know, more power to you. Please keep writing and make more stories, because I'm sure you can improve with every story that you make. But all in all, this story for me was rather average, and yeah, that's basically that for this story. Alright, those were 3 random creepypastas. I certainly hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed reading these stories. I would say we had a bit of a mixed bag this time around, but I really enjoyed the story with the spider. The other stories were fine, but ultimately I found them to be somewhat underwhelming or just average. Other than that, I don't know if there's much else to say for now. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and comment your thoughts down below. Don't forget to also subscribe. Check out my social medias if you want to. Or check out my Patreon page if you want to. Thanks again for the amazing support, and thank you so much for watching. Stay awesome, everyone. Goodbye.